Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let's take up today's important articles from 8th of June 2023. On the first page, we see wrestlers, they suspend the protest on minister's assurance. So Anurag Thakur tells the protesters that police probe against the WFI chief will be completed by 15th of June. So FIRs have been registered against the wrestlers on 28th of May for rioting will be taken back. And this is coming from the wrestler Sakshi Malik. So that is the update. And then curfew has been imposed in Kolhapur after the protest. So tension prevailed in Kolhapur city of Maharashtra following a violent protest by the right-wing outfits over some social media status messages reportedly glorifying Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb and 18th century Mysore ruler Tipu Sultan. So both these rulers definitely they're important from the perspective of history. And government it hikes the Kharif MSP, farmers demand more. So as far as MSP is concerned, you need to know about the exceptions. Like there are a lot of crops for which MSP is provided, but if you'll remember the exceptions for which it is not provided, then things can become easier. And you need to know about like what is the entire process of how MSP is decided, what is the formula used, and Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, what is its role? Then it's chaired by the Prime Minister. So Union Cabinet gives the nod for a 28.5-kilometer elevated metro line in Gurugram. So new metro line between the Hudda city center and Cyber City will be having 27 stations with a branch at Dwarka Expressway and project to come up at a cost of around rupees 5,500 crores, and it will be developed over a period of 4 years. So here is the map also. On the editorial page here, so you can spot the location of Nigeria and talking about the latest developments in the country. So Nigeria, it faces binary situation. One is a peaceful and orderly transfer of power contrasted by puzzling inability to realize the socio-economic potential of an oil-rich and fertile country. So as far as the natural resources are found, so it's an oil-rich country, and even like agricultural practice is there's more prevalent because we find fertile land in the country. So talking about the stakes of India in Nigeria. So we have important stakes in the political stability and progress of Nigeria, which besides being a friendly Commonwealth country, is also a large economic partner. And around 50,000 people of Indian origin, they live in Nigeria. It is the largest non-African community. And as a rule, Nigerians, they value India's appropriate technology, which is seen as well suited to the local conditions of Nigeria. So Nigeria, it has over 135 Indian-owned companies. Collectively, these are the second largest employer in the country. And total India's investments in Nigeria, it is around $10 billion. And we have traditionally been Nigeria's largest trading partner. So its position has slid down as the bilateral trade, it has shrunk by 21%. And these above two articles, they are talking about sedition. So there have been talks going on about that, whether sedition needs to be completely repealed or we need to continue with it with some amendments which suits the needs of today's times. So then we have like earlier we have talked about the recommendations of the Law Commission of India regarding the sedition law. Section 124A of IPC talks about sedition. So you need to know about that when it can be used, and then when we talk about the challenge, so it is like often misused. So in order to prevent the misuse, we need to come up with some amendments. And this article is also talking about the important Supreme Court judgments as well. So let's just quickly take up this article just about sedition. So I've already told you section 124A of IPC and the Law Commission 279th report. They have recommended the retention of this law. So it's an offense against the government and not the country. So law of sedition in India, it has a long and infamous history. Definitely it has like coming from colonial times. So it was incorporated in IPC in 1870. And the purpose was to suppress the voice of Indians who spoke against the British Raj, as the government did not want any voice of dissent or protest back then. So this was the initial purpose. And wording of section 124A, it clearly reveals the intention of the colonial government. Sedition, it is an offense against the government and it is not against the country. As many people, they think that sedition is used when someone is trying to incite violence, or basically the main idea in few people's mind is that it is used when certain thing it is happening against the country. So it is not against the country, it is against the government, and that is very clearly mentioned in it as well. So the offense is it is in bringing or attempting to bring in hatred. Either you are doing something which is bringing hatred, or you are attempting to do something which might bring hatred in coming time or in short period. Then it also includes the contempt or exciting or attempting to excite the disaffection towards the government that has been established by law. And this offense is committed by spoken or written words, by signs, or by any other means. So thus we can say the gist of the offense is bringing a government into hatred or contempt or causing disaffection towards the government of the day. So that is what clearly is sedition law. Then here it is talking about how in two different ways it was used during the British period. So the first major case was Queen Empress versus the Bal Gangadhar Tilak of 1897, in which the Bombay court found Bal Gangadhar Tilak guilty of sedition for writing a couple of articles in Kesari, which was his Marathi weekly, invoking Shivaji, which was interpreted as exciting disaffection towards the British government. And the second case was the Niharendu Dutt Majumdar and others versus the emperor, which was decided by the federal court. So acquitting the accused Majumdar, Sir Morris, he was the chief justice, explained the law as the public disorder, or the reasonable anticipation or likelihood of the public disorder is thus the gist of the offense. Then comes the Kedarnath and constitutionality of the sedition. So the brief journey into the British era, it is necessary to better understand the judgment in this case of 1962 by the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court and the Law Commission's recommendations for incorporating the essence of that judgment. So Kedarnath decided the constitutionality of sedition. So court held that it is constitutionally valid for two reasons. One is that the sedition, though it is an offense against the government, it is against the state, because the government is a visible symbol of the state, and the existence of the state will be in the jeopardy if the government is subverted. And secondly is that Article 19 Clause 2 imposes restrictions in the interest of the security of the state, which has wider amplitude and which includes the law on sedition as well. So these are two reasons explaining the constitutionality of the sedition law. So it is unconstitutional talking about this aspect. The real issue is that law of sedition contained in section 124A of IPC is unconstitutional. So this is the whole issue, whether it is constitutional or whether it is unconstitutional. So the Law Commission failed, or it did not want to see the fallacy in the Kedarnath judgment, which did not in effect soften this harsh law but declared that it is constitutionally valid. So Kedarnath equates government with the state, which is illogical in the context of a democratic republic. Therefore, its attempt to bring sedition within the framework of reasonable restriction under Article 19, Clause 2 is constitutionally impermissible. So that is the argument or reasoning saying that sedition is unconstitutional. So here it is talking about the past year's inflation story. So the major reason was Russia-Ukraine war conflict, which led to supply side issues, which exacerbated an already fraught global trade and production system. And before this war, obviously, it was the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted the supply chains. So here we have the data in different charts. So chart one is talking about the inflation in various countries, regions in the past 6 years. So here we are having the trend of past 6 years, and this dotted red line is showing the inflation trend in case of India. So you can see when we like had the COVID-19 here in 2020, you can see how it spiked up so sharply. Then it was around in this territory. Then we saw massive decline as well, but it is on an upward trajectory. In case of China, it is at a lower level. Then it is highest in UK right now. And then we have it for Brazil also. The blue line is for US. So although we are seeing that right now it is on a downward trend, but compared to the pre-COVID-19 levels, inflation is at a higher level. So how can we actually transition to a low carbon city? So here talking about the green energy transition, we've been talking about climate change, how to deal with that. Like every day we are talking about this topic. So what is the sector coupling approach? How do strategies to mitigate the excessive energy use change with different kinds of cities? And with one size fit all approach, will it work with respect to transitioning to a low carbon city or not? And how do we make energy governance equitable? So these are some valid questions. So what are the energy system transitions important? Why are they important for us? So an energy system transition, it could reduce the urban carbon dioxide emissions by around 74%. So with the rapid advancement in clean energy and related technologies and nosediving prices, we have crossed the economic and technological barriers to implementing the low carbon solutions. So this is no more a problem, and transition must be implemented both on the demand and the supply side. So mitigation options on the supply side include the phasing out of the fossil fuels and increasing the share of renewables in the energy mix and using carbon capture and storage technologies. So like whenever you're writing an answer, you can also divide it in the form of demand side and supply side steps. So on the demand side, we using the avoid, shift, or improve framework that would entail reducing the demand for the materials and energy and substituting them for fossil fuels with renewables. So secondly, in order to address the residual emissions, in energy sector, we must implement the carbon dioxide removal technologies. So what are the different types of strategies available for us? So the strategies to mitigate and adapt to low carbon varies based on the city's characteristics. So it is clear that one size fit all approach is not going to work. So transitioning to renewable energy sources is not as simple as replacing fossil fuels with a clean energy. So there are multifarious issues of energy justice, and when we talk about social equity to be dealt with, so this is a key consideration when we frame the energy transition policies also that are socially and environmentally fair. So the new emerging cities, they need to have people-centric urban design, and they need to use energy efficient services and infrastructure. They can also implement building codes that mandate a net zero energy use and retrofit existing buildings, all while gradually shifting to low emission construction material also. So how can actually the energy transition be just in nature? So energy systems, they're directly and indirectly linked to livelihoods also, local economic development, the socio-economic well-being of the people engaged in diverse sector. So a one-size-fit-all approach, it is unlikely to ensure a socially and environmentally just transition. And broadly, the energy supply that needs to be balanced against the fast growing energy demand. That is because of urbanization, then the needs of energy security and the exports. So additional justice concerns include the land dispossession related to the large scale renewable energy projects, then spatial concentration of poverty, marginalization of certain communities, then gendered impacts and reliance on coal for the livelihoods. So, are there any solutions that we have that foreground justice? Ensuring a transition to a low carbon energy system in cities at different stages of urbanization, national context, and institutional capacities, it requires strategic and bespoke efforts. So, they must be directed at governance and planning level, achieving behavioral shifts, promoting technology and innovation, and building institutional capacity. So this can form the conclusion of the answers. So what is KFON and how it aims to bridge the digital divide in Kerala? So how is Kerala fiber optic network project going to be rolled out? Has any other state declared access to internet as a basic right or not? And who are the beneficiaries of this project? So in November 2019, the Left Democratic Front government in Kerala announced that access to the internet would be a basic right in the state, becoming the first state in India to do so. So declaration, it came 3 years after the United Nations, it had passed a resolution which recognized internet access as a basic human right. So this is one important aspect. And then Kerala, it decided to set up this fiber optic network through which internet connections would be provided free of cost to 20 lakh BPL families. And the project, it is aimed at ensuring universal internet access and narrowing the digital divide, which has become especially acute after the COVID-19 outbreak. Coming to the world page, So US Secretary begins Saudi Arabia visit by meeting the Crown Prince. Apart from that, there have been elections going on in Kuwait. You need to know about where is exactly the Kuwait country it is located. So thousands flee homes after destruction of the Ukraine dam. So you can see the picture that because of the destruction of the dam, what it has caused. So flooded streets in the Kherson on Wednesday after the walls of the Kakhovka Dam it collapsed. So the UN nuclear watchdog says that the breach poses no short-term risk to the Russian-occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Vladimir Putin, in his first public reaction, calls it a barbaric act. So NATO to put up biggest air deployment exercise. So Germany is preparing to host the biggest air deployment exercise in NATO's history, which is a show of force intended to impress the allies and potential adversaries, German and American officials said. Coming to the business page, so crop shortages would exacerbate inflation following the MSP increases. So again, we expect in near future that will be facing again the supply side issues as far as the food production is concerned. So spillover effects on food prices from higher assured remuneration to the farmers to hinge on the food grain procurement strategy as well as prevailing market prices. And inflation in rice is another concern. Other core cereals, they're cited already running high. So cereal inflation earlier we were like struggling with high prices in wheat, and now rice is the concern. And today we also have the Monetary Policy Committee's meeting. So let's see what is going to be the decision about the changes in the repo rate. So about 80% of people opt to deposit rupees 2000 notes in the accounts. So about 3/4 of Indians are choosing to deposit the withdrawn rupees 2000 notes into the bank accounts so far rather than exchanging them for the smaller denominations, with the trend likely to boost the bank deposits. So China's exports tumble as the global demand falters. So definitely we're seeing this, the impact of this thing in different economies. And in this context, we have also talked a lot about that in future again, the export sector of India is going to face challenges because of weakening global demand. And the same is happening with even Chinese exports. Taking up the Mint newspaper. So I don't know whether you guys have seen or not that Apple has released one of the new products, which is called Apple Vision Pro. So that's a kind of a future technology, as we say, and it is based on augmented reality. So there's a kind of a headset. If you wear it, you'll like whatever you see in front of you, you can enlarge it to the maximum size. And definitely there are other features as well, but you won't have to use any other device apart from wearing that headset. So you can just, have more look about it. But here again, it is also talking about that, and definitely it's very costly as of now. And when we talk about its battery, so that is one of the challenges because it is only going to last for 2 hours when it is once it is completely charged. So can it really alter the world of mixed reality or not? So when we talk about augmented reality, virtual reality, so we need to be clear about what is the difference between them, because already one question has been asked on this thing in UPSC. So the segment is going, it is expected to grow at about 13% in 2023 and accelerate over 2023 to 27 forecast period. So that is what is the forecast says, and how it is going to expand in future. So there are other firms who are also working on similar kind of products. And so Chinese FDI, it faces great wall in India as the security fears they rise. So less than 25% of applications have been okayed since the Galwan clash. COVID outbreak sparked the policy change. So China's share of FDI inflow into India is dismal at around $2.45 billion. So this chart is showing us the top countries in terms of FDI in India. So Mauritius is at number one, followed by Singapore. Then we have US, Netherlands, Japan, and China. Coming to Financial Express newspapers. So yesterday also we talked about that airlines, they need to work upon such a formula that the airfares, they do not surge massively. So the percentage change in the average economy class one-way airfare from June 6 to 7 has been shown over here, and 7 to 15% decline for bookings done a day in advance. And airfares which have been soaring recently, especially since May 3, when the Go First suspended the operations, seem to be showing signs of moderation, with the Civil Aviation Minister asking the airlines earlier this week to devise a mechanism to control the airfares. So today we have, as I told you, the MPC is going to meet today and they'll be deciding about how they'll be going as far as the repo rate is concerned, given that inflation is moderating. So a day before, we saw that the stocks, they have rallied. So when we have a look at rupee versus dollars, so rupee, in a way we can say it is strengthening. Right now it is at 82.55 rupees against $1. Top sectors which gained included the realty sector, capital goods, then telecom, utilities, metal. So purchase price for the Kharif crops has been increased by 6 to 10.4%. So MSP increase, here we have the data for year-on-year basis for different Kharif crops. So blue one is for paddy, red is for tur, and this purple one is for moong. So when we try to understand the trend of only paddy, so in 2018-19, it was 13%. Then when we talk about the next following year, it was, you can see a decline, massive decline of 10%, we can say. So most of the time it has been around between 3 to 4%, and now it has been increased. So during this time also, it was because of COVID-19 pandemic. That can be one of the reasons. So whether the world today needs an energy transition, it is no longer a valid question in today's time. Today, we talk about that how should we achieve it, what needs to be the plan forward. So a new global energy economy is emerging with rapid growth of renewables as an alternative. So CACP says that cut the procurement from states with high Mandi taxes. So shift cultivation of rice to southwest and east to save water because rice and sugarcane both are water intensive crops. So this is also one part of the recommendation that you need to shift the cultivation of rice to southwest India and to east India in order to save water. So the Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices said in its report that high taxes, it restricts the interstate trade and makes the markets inefficient. Moreover, it has not led to any discernible improvement in the mandi infrastructure as well. And it also urged the government to take appropriate policy measures to promote rice cultivation in suitable areas and reduce the area under rice in states of Haryana, Punjab, and Western UP. So they have called it to be an urgent need to shift this cultivation to southwest and eastern India. So it said that Odisha, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, and northeastern states and the southwest coast, they are more suitable for rice cultivation. Coming to Indian Express newspaper. So here, so we've already talked about the wrestlers' protest. A world-class center of excellence in East Delhi. So it's going to be a model of self-financing and self-sufficiency. So it was conceptualized in 2012. The cost is 387 crore rupees. And you can see how it is going to look. So progressive Uttarakhand, this is a very important like news we have on this page. So let's take up each one of them one by one. So acting upon the vision of prime ministers and CMs is surging ahead on all development parameters. So the state government is committed to usher in the industrial growth with special focus on MSMEs. So they have Uttarakhand logistics policy. So they'll be working upon the logistics park, inland container depots, warehouses, truck terminals, logistics vehicle and cold storages, then development of eco logistics or the green logistics. Financial incentive ranging from 10 to 25% on the project cost that will be provided, and setting up of the industrial areas. So this is another area. Then single-use plastic ban. So policy boost for the sustainable solutions. What are the other sustainable alternatives for plastic? So investment promotion assistance, fixed capital made in the plant and machinery and workshops, building of the enterprises, interest subsidy would be provided. Then ODTP boosting the local products, here taking into account the needs of the people. Prime Minister's idea for sustainable development of rural India aims at espousing local products. So the one district, two products scheme of Uttarakhand government was launched in 2021 October. It tries to promote and generate self-employment opportunities. So what are like the exclusive products coming from Uttarakhand? You need to know more about them. Then GI tag products, that also becomes important. And then mega industrial policies will be spurring the growth, empowering startups, aiding the entrepreneurship, So Uttarakhand, it was once regarded as a late beginner in the startup ecosystem of the country, and it has seen rapid progress in the past 3 years. While till the end of the year 2018, there were only 100 startups in the state, and the figure it had gone beyond 500 by the end of 2021. So, in very short and simple words, men argue, but nature acts. So, this definitely fits into the topic of climate justice when talk about climate change. So, stock taking of the Paris Pact actions must keep equity concerns at center and should not lead to pressure on the developing countries. So, we've been talking a lot about climate justice, climate finance, that the developed world needs to provide the finance to the developing countries as far as tackling climate change is concerned. So here it is talking about Operation Blue Star and it completes 39 years. So it remains urgent that an alternative political discourse is nurtured to reflect Punjab's innate multiculturalism. So these tragic events, they require a justice-oriented political response. So note the keyword, it is saying justice-oriented political response. So on the contrary, in reality, we see the attempt to take refuge behind the rule book to defend the criminal acts of people in power. So the legal recourse is used to make humane, ethical, and moral responses redundant. So we have witnessed it in the past also in case of year-long farmers agitation and now the protest by women wrestlers. So lesson is that conflicts, it shall continue to simmer if they are faced with bureaucratic indifference. There is a legalistic approach and a commitment to the status quo. So history should be used to learn lessons rather than to teach a lesson. So we have talked about the crude oil production cuts and how it would be impacted, like how it would be impacting inflation, because around 85% of the crude oil is imported by India. And then we have also talked about the rise in share of the Russian crude oil imports. Apart from that, you can find about the member countries of OPEC Plus and OPEC. So why has Byju's sued its lenders, calling them predatory? So two tumultuous days at Edge education tech giant Byju's have culminated in the firm suing some of its lenders in the New York Supreme Court. So on Monday, Byju's it failed to pay the interest of $40 million on its enormous term loan B of $1.2 billion. And the next day, it initiated legal action against its lenders, calling their tactics high handed and predatory in nature. So let's understand what is term loan B. So a term loan B, or in TLB, it is a debt instrument through which startups they raise money that allows for a flexible repayment of their dues to the creditors. So generally borrowers, they are not required to pay the principal amount upfront, and unlike a regular loan, so they can pay a large amount at the end of the loan period. So this allows the borrowers the flexibility to spend the money and invest that in growing their business. So when did Baiju raise such a loan? So that's not so important for us. So why has Baiju, it has initiated the legal action? So Baiju said that on 3rd of March that lenders, they unlawfully accelerated the loan on account of certain alleged non-monetary and technical defaults. So on the back of this unconscionable acceleration of the TLB and the TLB lenders, they undertook unwarranted enforcement measures, including seizing control of Baiju's Alpha and appointing its own management. Then talking about generative AI, it is transforming businesses at rapid pace. So you need to know about what actually are the important features of generative AI, from ChatGPT to DAL-E and all the technologies in between. The new wave of generative AI is transforming businesses rapidly. So most optimistic about the generative AI impact is Brazil, India, and Middle East. Least optimistic countries includes US, Netherlands, and Japan. And most concerned countries who are most concerned with this technology is Netherlands, France, and Japan. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and also like the video.